The launch of Diablo IV is just around the corner, and today I'll be showing you my Bleed Whirlwind Barbarian build. Whirlwind can be a little weak in the early game, but the amount of crits you give this build is quite amazing. And based on what I can tell, Whirlwind is primed to be one of the best, if not the best skill for the endgame of Diablo IV. Now, keep in mind this won't be one of those 10-minute class showcases with untested builds and recycled content. Instead, it will be a full-fledged build guide for the launch covering how the build works, how to properly play it as you level up and transition into the end game, discussing all the skill points and how to allocate them effectively. I will also touch on the aspects that are ideal to have as you approach the end game, and additionally we will cover the class mechanic and options specific to this build. Lastly, we will delve into the Paragon Board, including all 220 points, so get ready for the ultimate Barbarian leveling guide build for the launch of Diablo IV, hardcore approved. The Barbarian class as a whole has a few weaknesses, but with the way I designed this build, I will actually tend to cover most of these important weaknesses, so let's go over them briefly. Firstly, the Barbarian has very poor resource management in terms of Fury, his main resource. Without proper gear or skills to help with it, the class can feel pretty terrible to play. Similar to the Druid, when the Barbarian isn't in combat, it loses Fury, making the early game that much more painful. Speaking of early game, the class is purely built around being effective in the end game. It has 4 weapon slots, which means it has the most options for legendary aspects. Unfortunately though, because of this design, the class is just weak early on and suffers for a very long time. Lastly, the class functions around burst windows, and if you don't time your skills correctly, the damage fall off can be pretty massive. Fortunately, with this Whirlwind build, you will have great resource sustain with Rally Cry, Taunt, and Death Blow, giving you tons of Fury. Whirlwind eventually gets mountains of crit for damage, and with the amount of synergies you have with constant vulnerability for huge damage numbers, this build is the epitome of spin to win. Now the way to play this build is quite simple. You lead with Rally Cry and lunge in, positioning yourself for Whirlwind, and then begin the spin. Once you drop below a certain Fury threshold, activate your Death Blow and build Fury again to spin and decimate your targets. Besides that, the build is pretty simple to play and should be fairly comfortable for anyone who's ever played a Cyclone or spin to win build like this. Alright guys, so we're on the Paragon board, and I'm just going to explain to you how we're going to path this so that you're ready for the launch. And yeah, we're going to start with Lunging Strike. We're going to grab Enhanced Lunging Strike, Battle Lunging Strike. We want the bleed here. It's really nice to set you up to start the bleeding effects. You can get the crit one if you want, but I generally like the bleed one. You're going to max Whirlwind. You're not going to do it first, obviously. You're going to path and get other things, but eventually you're going to end up maxing Whirlwind. You're going to get Enhanced Whirlwind, and then you're going to get Violent Whirlwind. So I know most people would think you would get Furious Whirlwind for the bleeding, but no, that's actually not good. Violent Whirlwind will give you a ton of damage, and it's more valuable as you'll be able to proc bleeding pretty easy with your technique, which will guarantee that you get bleeding whenever you hit with your weapon. And this is the two-hand sword, and you're going to be using two-hand swords anyway, so just make sure you get Violent Whirlwind. So we're going to get Pressure Point. We're not going to max this early, but just keep in mind that you will get this. Pressure Point is going to be really good because people don't actually realize, but Whirlwind actually procs quite a bit per cast, and it gives you, I think it's the best lucky hit chance modifier, even though its base chance is 25%. So just keep that in mind, that this skill actually procs more than you actually think, and Pressure Point is actually really good because it gives vulnerability. From there, we're going to actually grab Rally Cry, Enhanced Rally Cry, and Tactical Rally Cry. Enhanced Rally Cry give Unstoppable. This is almost always mandatory to get, so just keep that in mind. For most Bard builds, I feel like. We will also grab Challenging Shout, Enhanced Challenging Shout. I would usually stop here and then get this Tactical Challenging Shout later, but you can get these, or you can just stop here. Eventually later on we will get Imposing Presence and Martial Vigor. This is going to be great because this build actually is quite a bit more like up close and personal. You're going to be spinning, and it usually have a lower damage uptime than like Hammer the Ancients. Hammer the Ancients will just hit it and kill one time. You're probably going to hit a little bit more until you get more gear. And also just keep in mind, you can invest in Outburst and Toughest Nails if you want to make this a Thorns build, because you're going to be getting hit a good amount, but you don't have to. Next, you're going to grab Warcry, and we're going to grab Enhanced Warcry. We want the Berserking. I don't usually grab any of these 2 points. I don't think they're that worth it, but you can if you want to, but you'll have to take a point from something else. Also, you want Booming Voice as well as Rage Leader maxed out. This is gonna be great because you have literally 3 war cries and there's literally no reason not to have it. It's so good. And then Booming Voice is gonna give you more duration, too good to pass up on. And Swiftness is good. You use Whirlwind, which is really good at moving and attacking, and I think Swiftness is almost mandatory as a skill on pretty much all Bard builds, so definitely a great pickup. Alright, on to this next section, and here we want to grab Death Blow, Enhanced Death Blow, and then here is going to be up to you. You can get Fighter Death Blow for the Fury, or you can get Warrior Death Blow if you're going to commit to the Berserking form, but either way is good. Here you're going to grab Pit Fighter, you're going to max No Mercy, you're going to max Expose Vulnerability. You want to make sure you get Hamstring so that you can actually proc No Mercy with your blades, and then you want to max Cut to the Bone as it's going to give you increased vulnerability damage when they're vulnerable, which you're going to be able to do relatively easy. And then Expose Vulnerability, this one's a little different. I'm going to explain to you how this one works. At least with Whirlwind, whenever you're dealing damage with the Weapon Master skill, which is going to be your Death Blow, your next core skill, which will be your Whirlwind, will apply vulnerability. Now, the way that Whirlwind works is a little different from the other skills because it will snapshot the debuff on the enemy. What this means is as you're spinning from your initial spin, it will keep reapplying the vulnerability on the enemy, making this longer than actually 3 seconds, and then once you stop, the 3 seconds will actually start to tick down. So keep in mind that this is not like just 3 seconds the moment you spin, it's 3 seconds once you stop. Okay, so beyond that, this one's a really great point, and I'm a big fan of this setup. Next, we want Thick Skin. You don't have to take this. I think this is great because I find myself getting hit a little bit more with this build because, you know, I'm kind of spinning and we're doing ticks of damage. Not the best, but I think it's pretty decent. Depends on what you like, but I like it enough, right? Lastly, we're not getting absolutely anything here at all, and we're grabbing Walking Arsenal. You're going to use this very early because you have Lunging Strike, which you can use as a 2-hand weapon. You have your Slashing Weapon, not 2-hand, sorry. You can use it as a 2-hand, but you can use it as your like dual 1-hand weapon if you want to, which is ideal in my opinion. You're going to use Whirlwind, which is your slashing weapon, and you're going to use Death Blow, which is your bludgeoning weapon, and you easily get Walking Arsenal. And most importantly, later on, you're going to swap from this and you're going to grab Gushing Wounds. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to leave this for you guys in the build section. I guess I'm going to leave it for the early game leveling. So I'm going to keep it Walking Arsenal, but if you are like watching this video later, you want to get Gushing Wounds eventually. So that's the build section. Just double checking to make sure I covered everything. Yep, should be good to go. But yeah, this is the build. You don't have to follow it to the T, but this is how I would level if I was doing a Bleed Whirlwind build. Alright, now we're on the aspect section. We're going to talk about skills. We're going to start on the left side. First is going to be Relentless Berserker's Aspect. This is going to give you damage with core skills, have a chance to extend berserking, and you double this for whenever you crit. Keep in mind this build is actually pretty crit heavy, believe it or not. So you'll be able to do this relatively easy. And Spin is really good for lucky hit, so amazing synergy with Relentless Berserking Aspect. For helmet, for chest rather, we're going to be getting Aspect of Numbing Wrath. You're going to be using 3 war cries. You're going to be able to get Fortify really high because your Fury is going to be over Fury. It's going to end up happening because of the way the build is set up. So I love this one because it's very easy Fortify. Maybe I'm a little impartial to it, but it is. Next, you're going to get Accelerating Aspect. Crit hits with core skills will increase your attack speed. You're going to be critting a lot with this build because it's very high crit, and so the free attack speed is pretty decent. Next, we're going to get Aspect of Disobedience. You gain a % chance of increased armor for 4 seconds while you deal any form of damage, stacking up to 50%. Keep in mind that Whirlwind is a multi-proc ability. A lot of times you're going to be hitting multiple times. So this is a really decent one for armor. You can, again, sub these defensive ones for many other ones. I just use this one because I like armor and I super value it, but you can do like some barrier stuff too. It works just as well. It's a defensive node, so it's not that important in my opinion. Next, we're going to be using Ghostwalker aspect. I love this aspect. I think it's like the best foot aspect. There's a crit one that's decent, but Ghostwalker is amazing. Whenever you use Unstoppable, which we'll be getting from Rally Cry, you're going to get increased move speed, and this gives move speed, and then you'll have more move speed from Ghostwalker, and then you get the ability to like walk through enemies, and this is great for like hardcore players or players who generally don't want to die, as this will just make it easier for you to just walk through things. Next, we're going to grab Aspect of the Dire Whirlwind. This one is absolutely mandatory and cannot not be put on this build, because this will give you 80% crit when you put it on your two-hand weapon. You can put this on your bludgeoning or your slashing weapon, but I have it here, whatever. But keep in mind, you get 80% crit from that, and then with this, where is it? No Mercy, you get 89% crit. That is a absurd amount of crit for doing literally nothing. So amazing amount of crit, really good, and that's why you want it. Just straight up gives you so much damage. It's insane. And this is why I think Whirlwind is like really powerful. Attacking enemies with basic skills increase the damage of your next core skill by up to 30%. This aspect of the expectant, never put this on your two-hand. I'm gonna keep stressing this. Always put this on your one-hand weapon. This is only going to scale the amount of hits it takes to get to the 30%, not the increasing the amount of damage you get. So just remember that when you're using aspect of the expectant. Next, we're going to use Edge Master. This is going to increase your damage based on how much available resource you're going to have. You're going to have a lot of resource, so this is super valuable. You can put whatever you want in your slashing here. You could be doing a Thorns thing, so the Thorns one could be good. I don't really want to go over it, but whatever you want here, just put there. It's fine. Next, we're going to get Aspect of Echoing Fury. This is going to grant you Fury per second, per war cry that's active, per shout that's active rather. And since we have 3, we're always going to grab these 2. Which the next one would be Bold Chieftain. Every time you use a shout near an enemy, depending on the amount of enemies there, will reduce the number of seconds that the actual skill is. So again, if you ever have more than 2 shouts, these 2 in my opinion feel mandatory. We're running 3, so you absolutely have to have it. And then for the final necklace, this is going to be Aspect of the Berserk Ripper. Whenever you deal direct damage while berserking, inflict up to 30% of the base damage dealt as additional bleeding damage over time, over 5 seconds. Now, you don't have to put all this stuff on, but this is what I ideally would look up for my aspects. For my gems, we want Amethyst. This is a no-brainer, damage over time. For our armor, we're going to use Sapphires, or you can use Rubies. Health is valuable. Damage reduction is valuable. And then for your jewelry slot, we're going to use Skulls for the armor. I covered this earlier. We're going to be using two-hand sword for our what's this slot called? The technique slot. This one is absolutely mandatory and cannot not be on it. But yeah, this is all you're going to need for your aspects. Alright, we're on the arsenal system, and I like to explain it to all players just in case you're new to it, what the arsenal system does. So let me explain it briefly for those who are new. So basically what happens is, as you use each individual weapon, you will eventually level them up, starting at a base level 1 all the way up to a level 10. Once you reach level 10, the additional bonuses here will become unlocked, and then you can actually get the bonuses when you're using that said weapon. Now, upon reaching level 15 on your character, you can actually unlock a weapon expertise slot and slot any of these individual skills into that slot and get the benefit regardless of the weapon that you're going to use. Now, specifically to this build, you're going to use the two-handed sword. This one is actually one of the few that's absolutely mandatory for this build, as it will give you bleeding, which is big synergies to the build. So whenever you're playing this build, you want to make sure you get two-handed sword slotted in, because it is mandatory. Alright, onto the Paragon board. Alright, so we are on the Paragon board section. Just as I say in other videos, this is going to be kind of subjective on how you're going to etch this out, because you're not going to be able to guarantee that you get these glyphs. And keep in mind, these glyphs are all level 1. These bonuses are better as you're able to farm them. But again, you're not going to be able to always guarantee to get these glyphs because they're random. But I'm giving you just a base that you can go off of and maybe have, you know, some sort of pathing, you know. So let's start off. This is your base board. You can't really do anything about it. You have to start this way. We grab the 2 red nodes here. We grab This glyph, this one's actually pretty broken because if you hit anyone that is bleeding, once you get the dex requirement, you actually get 5% crit chance with this. This means you have 80 from your spin base aspect, you get 9 from No Mercy, and then you get 5 from here, and you're at 94% crit without a single gear investment. Is absolutely broken and amazing. So this one's super good. And this, I think this can scale up when you get more levels to it, so super good. The next board is Blood Rage. I like Blood Rage because these nodes are here. You get some bleeding stuff, you get some more damage while berserking stuff, and then I like the legendary node. Killing a bleeding enemy has a 10% chance to gain berserking. This is going to give you really good berserking sustain. So it's really nice because, like, if you're in a group of enemies, obviously it's not as good as killing bosses, but if they have ads, it's decent. But when you're killing enemies and mapping and stuff, you get so much berserking from this, so it's really good. As far as the node, we're getting Martial. I love Martial. Maybe I'm just a little biased to it, but you have 3 shouts, and having Martial is going to really make your shout uptime just basically permanent with it. So super good. This is how we're pathing it, grabbing these red nodes, and that's pretty much it. Direction, I actually made this board first, but honestly, I don't think it matters too much. I'm just going to show you the board. The top one is going to be Weapon Master. And you'll notice this board is very similar to my hammer one. But anyway, I love Hunter Killer. It's super amazing. You really want that damage to elites, and then the move speed is super valuable. But you have a lot of move speed and damage to elites here that I like to value a lot of. I will almost always get this for this because I really like it for map flow. Anyway, we have the Raw Power here node, and we have the Iron Strength node, Armor Strength, good stuff. And then the main node is the Berserking node. While berserking, you take 10% reduced damage from elites, which is great. And then you get more damage while berserking, which you're going to be berserking really well with this. Anyway, this tree is really good because you have a lot of berserking. You get really good berserking uptime from, what's the node? This one. So lots of good berserking synergy here with this. Over here on the right, we have Carnage. We're actually not grabbing the Carnage node, I don't think. No, we're not grabbing the Carnage node, but we are grabbing the Disembowel node. This one's super good. Killing a bleeding enemy has a 10% chance to reduce the cooldowns of your non-ultimate abilities. You don't have your ultimate, so this can reduce all your shouts, which again gives you really good uptime. If you're using your death blow in a good way, this can help it, but sometimes you just don't and you mess up. This can really help with your death blow uptime. So really good for your shouts uptime and your death blow uptime. Really amazing. And then we grab all the stuff you see here. This one's not mandatory, by the way. You can swap this out to something else, but some of these are really hard to get, like the dex requirement, so that's why I'm picking a lot of strength ones. Dex is kind of tough sometimes. Anyway, we grab the Berserker node, really decent. And this is synergizing with your berserking because you're already berserking all over the place, you know, from the other nodes we had. Come up here, there's a lot of Fury stuff. I love this Fury stuff. I absolutely love the Fury stuff. Gives you so much extra uptime on your damage. And then we grab the Seething. Oh, and the node is Warbringer here. Anyway, we actually don't get the Warbringer node. You could get it, but I mean, it's kind of out of the way in my opinion. But we get Seething. This will give you Fury whenever you're wielding a sword and you kill an enemy. This is gonna just have some high damage uptime on your Fury gain because you're gonna get a lot of it from spinning to win because you're gonna be spinning with your sword. We have the Conditioned. It's not needed, but you know, we need it for the strength. The resistance is decent too, I guess. And then the Raw Power, good. Physical damage, good strength, good stuff you need. Overall, really solid all around. Your strength is really good with this build. Anyway, final one, Hemorrhage. This one was really hard to skimp out of because I ran out of points. But it's pretty decent. We grab Vulnerability here because this gives you increased vulnerability damage, and you're going to be applying a ton of vulnerability because you have you know, these skills here. You have Exposed Vulnerability and Pressure Point. So it's really nice for vulnerability. I think this is kind of mandatory to have, and it'll help with vulnerability uptime with the decks. We grab the grit, which is going to do damage reduction for enemies that are bleeding, so a good defensive node, and then with some physical damage over time with Butcher. Pretty straightforward. We're just trying to path everything and get everything. Keep in mind though, for those of you who have watched to this point, that I will be updating the build consistently, so this may not be the most optimal, but I'll be updating it over the next couple of days while I'll have some downtime in between videos. But yeah, this is it for the Paragon board. Let's wrap this up. Alright, that covers everything you need to know about the Barbarian class and the build. I trust that you'll find it relatively easy to reach the end game with this build, as the damage output is amazing once you have all your skills and synergies in place. Now, if you have any questions about this build, I will be live streaming it on YouTube on the launch day of Diablo 4, so feel free to come and ask me anything. Creating this video took many hours, not just in editing, but also in testing, so if this video helped you out, please hit the subscribe button and like it for more Diablo 4 content. Your support means a lot for me, and I'll see you in the next Diablo 4 video very, very soon. Later.